Welcome to Everything CPA and Private Equity, where we unpack the evolving relationship between accounting firms, private equity, and other strategics. I'm David Wolfscale, a partner at Whitman Transition Advisors.
And I'm Phil Whitman, CEO of Whitman Transition Advisors. And we've chatted with more than 150 private equity groups. We've actually closed over 40 transactions with those private equity groups. And we're bringing you firsthand insights from the front lines.
And whether you're exploring your first deal, putting your toe in the water, refining your strategy, we're here to guide you with real stories, expert advice, actionable takeaways. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Everything CPA and Private Equity. We're so excited to have Lee Cohen as a guest, who's both a client and a friend of ours. So this podcast is really for leaders of CPA firms to get more information, to see insights from real people and people who have done things or decide not to do it. Either way is fine. And I always like to start with a leadership quote, and I believe leaders are multipliers. And when I was thinking about Lee and I was looking for a quote, I think this really fits very well. So if your actions inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And that's from John Quincy Adams. And when I was working with Lee, it was very obvious that his team bought into his vision, bought into his dream, and became more. And then there's lots of people. Yeah, I remember we went to a holiday party and the room was packed. And it was the same room that you had your holiday party when it was had so much space because you went from one table to 7 or 8 tables. So it's been great seeing your continuing growth and to being a little bit of an insider for part of it, and very excited to have you on today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. You guys have made a great impact in my firm prior to our whole Ascend transaction. And I still have learned a lot from both of you, and you guys really helped me to grow my firm and get me to where I am today. So I appreciate that.
Well, Lee, I'll tell you, one of the things that I remember is sitting in your office. And, I remember thinking, and this is going back when, you were not quite as large as you are today. I'll just leave it at that. And I remember you were like a sponge. You would constantly say, oh, I read this book and I read that book. And you were just like soaking up, and you had all the right concepts and all the right ideas. And it kind of blows my mind when I think back to those days and I compare that to where you are now. And they say life's a journey, and you've certainly had a glory journey. So, why don't we, dig in and, I know David has some questions, but I never thought that we'd be looking at LMC and Lee Cohen the way that we are today from those very, very humble beginnings. So kudos to you. Congratulations.
I appreciate that. And I never expected to be where I am today either. And David sat next to me at a table one day and he said, think about where you're going to be in 5 years, who's going to be around the table. And that echoes in my mind every single time I'm in a meeting or, in a partner meeting and seeing where we got to. So I'm very blessed to be where I am today, but with a lot of guidance from a lot of people that have really helped me.
So we're going to now go into the educational portion of the podcast here. We're going to start asking some questions, but, obviously lots of good things. So, one of the things we hear from managing partners all the time, and it's funny because it's the same thing we heard before strategics came into the marketplace, which is I'm worried about having a new boss. If I merge into a CPA firm or if I merge into a strategic, I have this fear. I'm going to have a new boss. I'm going to have to do things differently. And my life is going to change in huge ways. So Lee, you've done a transaction, right? And you were on your own and the sole partner for, probably 5, 6, 7 years for a significant amount of time. So why don't you talk a little bit about that transition and what you expected to happen and what your life is as a leader to that?
Well, I really didn't know what I was going into.
Okay.
Ascend was new. There were a lot of things that we had discussed, but, they really suggested that they would help me grow. And I didn't really understand what help me grow meant. I was a little concerned, right? I was the person that was making all the decisions every day. I didn't answer to anybody. If I wanted to do something, it was on my whim. Um, and I was concerned that that would change tremendously when I did this transaction. I've had the total opposite experience. Ascend has allowed us to operate our business. They've given us the tools to help us grow the business. They've given us the tools to actually evaluate our business and understand it better than I ever was able to before. And, you know, they're not like the traditional PE firm. We're not reporting to a board. They have their own leadership team that is very involved, but there's no board presentation or anything like that. We're working closely with them, and we're working closely to continue to build each individual firm the way that firms want to be built. And, you know, everyone is in a different geography, has different niches, and they've really helped me to recognize who I am in the industry and what my specialties are, who our target clients are, and they've really given me the ability to step away from the day-to-day and really do what I love, which is vision, strategy, consulting with clients. And that's how I spend my time now.
So it sounds like if on a scale from 1 to 10, you're like a 12 of happy with your decision. Is that a fair-ish assessment there?
It's a very good assessment. I'm very, very happy with my decision. And you know what, I'll tell you what I tell everybody. Everything is not perfect, right? As much as I can sit here and tell you everything's perfect, everything's not perfect. But I have a partner that works really closely with me to handle problems, overcome obstacles, and I feel very good about that. And that's something that I didn't have before. The other thing is you know, you now have this whole network of other firms and other people and other CEOs to bounce ideas off of. That has been really great. And I've gotten, you know, I have some really great new close friends and other CEOs that have gone on this journey with me. And that's been really positive for us as well.
Quick question, Lee. You were a relatively an early adopter. If I'm not mistaken, you may have been firm number 3 or 4 on the Ascend platform. I know they had done the firm out in Washington State, and they did a firm in Texas. And if I recall correctly, you may have been the 3rd one, maybe the 4th. A lot of folks decided that they were just going to sit on the sidelines and wait. And you took action. You were an early adopter. You moved quickly. Obviously, there were fears. There had to be fears in your mind. But what was it that, you know, made you, you know, take that early leap of faith that Ascend was going to be the right partner for you?
So I was the 3rd firm, and us and the firm in Texas, ATKG, came in pretty much at the same time. They said a lot of things to me that really resonated. But the most important thing that I heard, actually, there were a couple things. Their people first motto and my firm and how I feel about my staff and the people that work with me, they're the most important. I could not do this. I can't do this without all this staff and people that work with me. And their people first motto and being able to enhance that for my staff was really important. That was one thing. You know, taking administrative burden off of me was another big thing, right? They handle back office. They handle insurance, tech, learning and development, help with HR and recruiting. So they're taking a lot of administrative stuff off our plates, which allow us to do what we need to be doing, which is servicing our clients and being able to grow even more than we were. And then giving us the infrastructure and the financing to acquire other firms, to hire people. They've been great partners with that, and that's been great. Now, did I know all of this when I dove into this? No. I was petrified, right? Am I making the right decision? Am I not making the right decision? But I was at a crossroads. And my crossroads were, do I stay doing what I was doing? I was not the happiest person out there. I was working really hard, and I felt like I was just growing little by little. I could merge up into another firm. I knew that was not what I wanted to do. I knew the relationship I had with my clients. I knew that a big firm mentality, big firm was not going to be the right place for them. And I was really stuck. And then this came along and I said, you know what? This solves a lot of problems for me. It helps me with the people problem, not the problem, the people working with our staff. It helps with the administrative burden. It gives me the ability to grow, and it gives what I felt were a lot more opportunities than I would have had on my own. And I can definitely tell you today where I've grown to and how I've grown. I would never be able to do this on my own. And they've helped a lot with it. There were early, stumbling blocks along the way. And I tell, all new firms now that they're so lucky because there's like this whole proven process that Ascend has.
You helped get the kinks out.
Yeah. But, like I said before, everything's not always rosy, but everything's not rosy in business. If it's not this problem, it would be that problem, right? And that's how I weigh and measure now. And, I am thrilled with my decision. I know my staff is really happy with my decision. We've done an equity buying program that, 95% of staff that were offered, managers and above that were offered shares bought them. And there's a lot of different opportunity for people now that they never had before in the public accounting industry.
That's something. And again, that you mentioned the people first mentality, and you really care about your people. One of the biggest things that we hear from managing partners or even partner groups where you got an older partner group and a younger partner group is, how's this going to be good for my younger partner? How's it going to be good for my young up and comers? And I always say when I meet with a client, as an outsider looking in, if I had a choice of being the old 63-year-old that I am, or a 40-something or a late 30s, I'd want to be that younger person, even though I might be taking more chips off the table and get more cash up front. It's those young folks, those folks that you just talked about getting an equity buy-in. I mean, manager or senior manager level and above, that was never anything that existed. So what you're telling us is they're actually participating in the success of the firm. Can you go a little bit more into that? What that might look like for some younger folks out there? Because we want to get them to believe that we're not just saying this is really happening with some of these organizations like Ascend.
Yep. So we, our managers are probably 30 years old and above. And if I had to, tell you the buy-in of the shares, the younger the people were, the more they bought.
Wow.
Which was fascinating for me. And it's just interesting to see them understand the value. Sen does a really good job at explaining the value and what the trajectory of Ascend is for people. But they're really excited about that growth opportunity and really excited to own a piece of something instead of just getting a salary and a bonus, which was the traditional method of until you became a partner. And when do you become partner in a firm? 55, 50, 40. These are 30-year-olds, 33-year-olds that are, buying in. And, God willing, they'll have the chance to monetize at a much different stage in their career than they would ever have dreamt of. It really means a lot to them when their friends are at a finance company or private equity company or something and getting stock shares or options and stuff. And now they're in that same world. And I think it's revolutionizing the accounting industry, and the accounting industry needed a change. That's for sure.
So odd, right? Because we hear all the time, hey, it's good for me, I'm going to get a check, but for my younger partners and my younger up and comers, and your experience, and this is direct experience, this has been a positive for the younger the younger folks on your team, clearly, right?
Absolutely. I wish I could bring one or two of them into the room right now and have them tell you what they told me, like when we were doing it. And, it's really positive. And let me tell
Maybe
you,
we'll do a follow-up, Lee, where we can actually do that so that the rest of the world can hear that, this is real and it's really happening. And I believe those 33-year-olds, as there are transactions and new investors coming in, and they call it bites at the apple. So I believe when you have a bite at the apple, your people are also going to have a bite at the apple, and not just at the partner level, which is really tremendous. It's fantastic.
yep. And we had an employee that even posted it on their LinkedIn yesterday, like that they bought shares and they're excited about their share being a shareholder of Ascend, which was, nice to see and surprising. When I did the transaction, I was petrified that I was going to lose a lot of people. That was a big fear of mine. And thankfully, our retention rate is very high. People are happy. Bonuses and comp is different than it would be had I been on my own. Ascend puts forth a great package like that, and I feel good about what I'm doing for my staff and partners.
And I understand that they do an amazing job recruiting for your firm as well. That they've got, I always say it's like 24/7 recruiting. At firms, we used to say, oh, we tried everything. We put up a LinkedIn ad. We're working with all these recruiters, all these things. And somehow, I believe when we spoke with David and Nish last week, they said, since they got started, Zend has hired over 250 to 300 CPAs for their partner firms. So I'm sure you've benefited from that as well.
We've definitely benefited from that. We've benefited from the hiring of a CGO, a Chief Growth Officer, and that person has really been fundamental to what we do here and really looking at the business, monitoring the business, and really helping us grow the business in ways that we never expected. When they presented this title to me and the resume, I kind of laughed at them and said, are you guys crazy? This is not somebody from industry. I need someone from industry that's going to understand this. And I took the interview just to be a good partner. Is at the beginning stages of our partnership. I said, you know what, I'll do it for them, but I said, they don't know what they're talking about. But I met the person. I loved what they had to say, and they created an amazing impact here. And that's definitely one of the lessons I learned, that you don't always need somebody in industry to perform certain tasks. So it's been a really good, positive experience for me.
And how do you interact? So talk a little bit about the day-to-day with this Chief Growth Officer. And I read this morning in the Wall Street Journal, this won't be released today, but that is a trend in the industry. So why don't you talk a little bit about the impact and the interaction as a leader with that person?
Yep. So we have a ELT, Executive Leadership Team meeting every week, and the Chief Growth Officer is part of that and really driving the biggest issues that need to come to our ELT. I meet weekly or biweekly with the CGO, and really they dig deep into the business and really help me understand it and help me understand, who's driving the growth, where should we be cross-selling, where should we be marketing, what's the right price increases, what are the levers that we can pull that will give the most impact for us. And, the CGO actually keeps me a little grounded because, like I said, I'm a visionary and I have a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts. They keep me grounded and they help me understand, the impact of some of the things I'm asking for. Is it the right time? Is it the wrong time? And, it's really somebody that really takes our ideas and brings them to fruition when they make sense for our business.
And it sounds like you, David, you and me, yin yang. You want to go out and conquer the world tomorrow. It's wonderful to have that alter ego type person to keep you grounded.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's been a big win for you.
It definitely has been a big win.
I'm sorry, Lee.
No, go ahead.
So I was going to ask, one thing that we didn't touch upon. We touched upon the staff and the impact. We touched upon you and leadership. Let's talk for a minute or two about the clients, right? Because this was also a change, perhaps for the clients, or at least a perceived change for the clients, whether that's reality or not. So why don't you share some of the early feedback and some of the feelings today as well?
early feedback was a lot of uncertainty, right? Like, are you retiring? Are we not going to see you anymore? What's going to change for us? We had a close relationship with you and your partners or staff or whoever it is. Is this going to change anything? And we've been really clear and reassuring from that day that it wouldn't. And we still hold true to that today, right? We still, we maintain close client relationships, try and deliver white glove service to our clients. There was some changes under the alternative practice structure where you needed 2 engagement letters, things changed a little bit. But for the most part, when you explain to a client what the benefits were for me as a business owner and CEO of why I did this, they really got it and understood it. And embraced it. I won't say that, there weren't, a handful of clients that said maybe, I don't want to be part of this. But, we got them aboard and we have a pretty high client retention rate and, they're not really feeling the difference. If anything, they're feeling some different technology advances and things that I probably would not have been able to do on my own. So I haven't seen any negative impacts on our clients. And it's really a non-starter now. People don't talk about it. I mean, sometimes when I go on a new client proposal, they'll ask about it because if they Googled or did search, they saw something. But again, explaining to them our philosophy, our mission statement, what we do, how we do it, usually will deliver us a new client and not be an issue.
So as we wrap up, Lee, anything else you want to share with anybody? Any final thoughts?
My final thought is don't have limited beliefs about this private equity industry. Listen, educate yourself, talk to other people that have done it. It's not as scary as you think. It's not as different as you think. If you get the right partner, and thankfully I selected the right partner and I'm fortunate, it should really change the managing partner's role. It should change some of your partner's roles, and it should be really lucrative for everybody from the beginning through hopefully events in the future.
Well, Lee, really appreciate your time. If you like what you're hearing, again, we want to educate leadership about this opportunity. Lee is somebody who's done a transaction, shared his insights, and so we're appreciative of that. If you like what you hear, like us, subscribe to us. If you have any questions, let us know. We're here to educate and support. And like Lee said, you have conversations. Now we educate ourselves. Phil has met with, over 200 firms in private equity firms, but educate yourself, listen. And here we have somebody who was super successful pre-transaction. And from everything he's saying, even more successful post-transaction. And on a personal level, spending more time doing the things you love and less time doing the things that you have to do because we have to do them. Is that a fair final statement?
You hit the nail on the head, David, as you always do.
Lee, wishing you continued success and looking forward to tracking you and helping you with your continued growth. And I think there's a book, maybe you'll create enough time to write a book of how you were part of the changing of the profession.
It's a good goal for me. I look forward to doing that.
Well, for everybody, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Lee, again, always nice to spend some time with you. Phil, thank you. Go crush the day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Everything CPA and Private Equity. Every episode brings fresh insight. However, there's always more to talk about.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you watch podcasts. Have a question or topic you'd like us to cover? We'd love for you to reach out to us.
Together, we will help you navigate this dynamic landscape so that we can help you achieve your goals. Until next time, keep making moves that matter.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.